La'asok Divrei Torah.
Okay, I did mention to people, I'm going to say it again. I do apologize. I'm in my 4th week of not having a voice at all. And Risa has COVID. So we're kind of in a little bit of a mess. It'll be good. It'll be fine. But that's what's going in. And I apologize because I know it is uncomfortable to listen to my voice. Under the best of circumstances. I
was about to say that, Stan, but you took words out of my mouth.
I move quickly. Wednesday, February 22nd is our next current events class. And I'm so pleased to be able to tell you that the world is falling apart. And so
Hi, sweetie.
we're going to look at Jewish understandings of Armageddon. That seems to be where we are. I have something really weird happening in one screen. I don't know what that is.
We all have that.
Yeah. Oh,
Stop.
Jim, who's eating? Okay, I guess that's okay. February 22nd this week is the current events class. Cindy, what do you have up?
Tuesday night, we have happy hour for women only at Skylight in Westwood at 5 o'clock. On Friday, we have dinner, Shabbat dinner at Froman, 6 o'clock. Everybody is welcome to that. I'll put the link in the chat room if you want to contact me to be invited. Susie's in charge of the Friday program, so you could either let me know or her know if you would like to join us. We'd love to have you there.
Cindy, put my number in the chat, please, so that I can keep count. Thank you.
We are having I have no idea what's going on. Okay, we got that. Jim Ruxin. What do you got, Jim?
Hi, tonight we have a very special film. It's called Hallelujah, and its apparent subject is the song Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen, which he's probably best known for worldwide. But it's really a meditation on his own journey from entertainer through disillusionment, through 5 years at a Buddhist monastery and back to performing again. When he learned that his business manager stole all his money and he went on the road again and suddenly enjoyed more success around the world than he had before his retreat. And it's a journey that takes you on your own journey, because his struggles with meaningfulness, relationships, and making sense of a very painful world, as Stan just said, become ours. Through this lovely song where the lyrics are very important. And you find out that the song initially was about concerns about God and concerns about romantic relationships. And he kept writing the song for 7 years and changed the lyrics. So there are like 3 versions of it, depending upon who sang it and when he sang it. And it ends with a very moving final concert of his in Tel Aviv, kind of a return home. And this will take you to a lot of personal places and touch you very deeply. So even if you can't participate tonight at 7:30, I encourage you to see this film on your own. You will enjoy it. You will be moved by it. You will think about your own life quite a bit. So it's kind of what we try and do with the Film Society discussion, is reach that level of self-understanding. That's tonight at 7. And just go to info@WBTLA.
7:30?
7:30.
Or 7?
7:30. And I want to welcome Donna Chakuri to the group, Joy, sorry. And hope that you can make it tonight. You'll love this film as well. She expressed an interest in the movie, so we welcome her. And see as many of you tonight as can make it.
Super. And I find myself rotating on YouTube between Hallelujah and You Like It Darker. You Want It Darker.
Yeah.
And I keep listening to both. and I will shortly be locked up in a padded cell. So that is just fine.
Keeps
Okay.
you bouncing between both worlds.
Yes, absolutely. Anything that needs to be shared with the community? Anything that someone wants to share with the community? If not, we're going to go right into the text. And again, I'm hearing myself, and I hate it. We're in Mishpatim, chapter 22. Chapter 22. And we're going to start with verse 17.
What page?
Chapter 22, verse 17. And I'm on page 518.
Thank you.
518 in the Plout.
Or 37 in the women's commentary.
Okay. Well, tomorrow. Shabbat Shalom. So, anyhow, I just thought I'd start out by opening up some really interesting stuff. Mishpatim has 53 mitzvot. How many mitzvot are there in the Torah?
613.
613.
Out of the 613, 53 are here. That's a pretty good load for one sedra. Let's look at verse 17. Donna, would you please read verse 17, all of it?
I'm sorry, I can't find the page. Where are we?
We're on 518 in the Plout.
Okay.
I want you to read the whole section, verse 17.
You shall not tolerate a sorceress.
That's it.
Okay. You shall not tolerate a sorceress.
That's
Whoever
it. No,
That's it.
that's it.
Okay. That was tough. Thanks.
Okay, and I'm going to ask you to memorize it and report at the end of the hour. Okay.
I'll try.
Okay, see what you can do.
I have a question.
Steve,
My translation says you shall not permit a sorceress to live. Those are very different meanings for those few words,
Mechashefa is a sorceress.
right?
Lo is the negative.
Yep,
Chayeh
is live.
Yeah. What? Thought you weren't up for something because you didn't come see Fox.
don't let her live. The text says, don't let a witch live. That's different from tolerate.
Yes.
Okay. So, what do you think about that? In the 613 commandments, one of them in this section says, don't tolerate, don't let a witch live. How do you feel about that? Those of us who lived in New England know Salem, and we know the Salem witch trials. Witches have been around a long time. As a matter of fact, my fourth grade teacher was a witch. But
Is that an opinion or a fact?
Cindy, when I give an opinion,
It's a fact. It's a fact. Love it.
what do you think about that, folks? Don't let a witch live. Cindy, go ahead.
Well, despite it being a commandment, Saul, the day before he died, actually consulted with the witch of Endor. So he kind of went against, and of course she was nervous because she didn't know if he was trying to trick her and would kill her.
But he was crazy.
Well, yeah, that too.
Excuse me, let's not focus on Saul. Let's focus on the witch of Endor, right? And she apparently was functioning in the community, right? She was there. And Saul went to her. Cindy, what was the occasion? What was going on?
Saul was nervous about the Philistines and wanted to know the future, how he would fare. And she predicted that he would die and his son would die the next day, which happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Howard, go ahead, please.
I think, I don't know just how long ago, but probably even 2,000 years ago, an enlightened person did not believe that witches existed. So this text says witches exist, which I don't think is a very enlightened idea, much less whether you should let them live or not is another thing.
Now, tell me, while we're doing this, not permitting a witch to live, does that mean we should kill Warren Buffett? I get no bites on that one. Okay. But there are a lot of people who pay a lot of money to come to Warren Buffett's gathering and hear the truth of God from the sage, Warren Buffett. Steve?
I think this is like a corollary of the big two, killing and idolatry, because the whole idea of witches is that you are putting your faith in some source or being other than God. And that's why the death penalty is appropriate.
Let's dig a little bit further underneath. Why do witches and Warren Buffett exist? They're meeting a need. What's the need? What's the need?
Certainty. People want to know.
Okay, Jeff.
Yeah, I was going in a slightly different direction, or at least an explanation about the belief in God, that there's also a political dimension, isn't there? Because some people would say belief in God is a form of its own superstition. And in other words, you're saying we belong to this sect, we belong to this cult, we believe in this God. And so as we know, as they're traveling through the desert, trying to create a code that's going to keep people together, could this be perceived in part as also a way to say, you listen to our leaders, you don't listen to other leaders. So it's not merely a intellectual type of condemnation. It's also very political at the same time.
I think that's a terrific insight, and it's real. And by the way, it does continue until today or tomorrow. We are always looking for a window what tomorrow looks like. I read somewhere, and forgive me for not being able to be accurate, but in the sale of stocks, the faster your internet connectivity, the better chance you have to catch a stock and make money off of it by seconds. By
milliseconds.
One place, now I really don't remember, but I think it's Tennessee, that they wired the whole town with absolutely the fastest internet connectivity. And they pulled businesses into town because in those milliseconds, fortunes are made and lost. Knowing the future is big. Donna. Donna, you had your hand up. But okay, Ray. Donna, I'm not hearing you.
Thank you. I just muted Donna, though.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay. I think it's interesting that it's a sorceress that we should not let live. I don't hear anything about sorcerers that we have to get rid of. And personally, I think witches are just a way for people to say, oh, this woman is really intelligent. Oh, she can, she's very wise. We got to get rid of her because she's dangerous.
Donna, it says in the commentary, though, that it applied to men as well.
Oh, well, it's interesting that it's a female noun there.
She's playing with Satan, Donna. She is an evil person.
Yeah, I think it's a really, I think it's a sexist thing, personally. That's my opinion.
Oh, women are scary.
Well, that's true, but that doesn't mean we have to kill them.
No,
Yeah, the comment does say, it says that the feminine specification here probably reflects the historical reality that most of those who practiced this outlawed cult were women. Apparently, sorcery was a body of knowledge preserved in female circles, as certain types of priestly lore were maintained by males. So it's not to say there wasn't a sexist connotation to it, but it goes on to say that this also included any male practitioners of this stuff.
Yeah. And I just want to point out, when I say that women are scary, it's the connection with blood is very frightening to the ancient world.
To men.
I said to the ancient world. Why did you?
Just saying.
Okay, but you're right. Totally correct. And that women are a source of fertility and of blood. It was very unsettling to the stupid men of that era. Did I say it better? Okay, yeah. I want to keep going. Ray Kasarin.
Thank you. I want to also honor the very likely possibility of misogyny here, but I wanted to address your earlier question, what are witches for? And I would say not only about forecasting the future, but I think there's a difference between the kind of predictor who gives immediate gratification. I would say an answer I have, what are they for, is immediate gratification, immediate sense of knowledge and news you can use. And I draw a distinction between a sorceress and a forecaster who is celebrated in Torah, being Joseph and his reading of the dreams. And we can certainly say, well, yes, there's demonstration likely of the sexist difference. That's entirely possible to likely. But we also have the golden calf incident, where it is not a woman who committed the wrong. And there's something in terms of the immediate need for satisfaction from that exercise that gets punished. And immediacy does certainly challenge our relationship with how God frequently asks the Israelites to understand their relationship with God.
Okay, I want to jump in. Marv, Harvey, and then Susie and Steve. I have so much I want to say, but I'm being controlled.
I want to go back to Donna's point and note the placement of verse 17, that the verse 15 and verse 16, and if a man entice a virgin that is not betrothed and he lie with her, he shall surely pay a dowry for her to be his wife. If her father utterly refuse to give her unto him, he shall pay money according to the dowry of virgins. So there's no agency for a woman in those two verses. And then if you look at the verse following 17, whosoever lieth with a beast shall surely be put to death, that There's a reinforcement of what's going on in verse 15, but it's the woman who's put to death in verse 17.
Okay, first of all, this is not going to help anybody. And so I am speaking in quotations. Please mail all hate mail to Steve Miller. Okay. But okay.
Rabbi, could it be that if a man was a sorcerer, they called him a prophet? If a woman was a sorcerer, they called her a sorcerer. That goes along with what Donna was saying.
We do have women prophets.
Yes, but very few.
Yes, enough. No.
Yeah, it was. It was a good point.
Okay. We do have women prophets. Let me just say what Rashi pointed out here, and I don't take responsibility for it, but it's there. A woman being raped and a cow being raped, there's a similarity because neither have a voice. This is what Rashi said. Very interesting. We can plumb what the meaning of not having a voice could be. No one cares, no one listens, no one hears. So the rabbis play with this proximity of the witch and lying with a beast. There's stuff there. I want you to talk. Susie, please.
Is there a difference between, quote, a sorcerer, witch, and a present day clairvoyant that charge a lot of money for their, quote, wisdom, unquote? And clairvoyancy is like a gift. There really are people, I think anyway, my opinion, that are clairvoyant.
Yes.
Any comments?
What does clairvoyant mean, the word?
To me, it means
Clear seeing.
Clear seeing, clairvoyant, clear seeing, someone who can see. Now, Susie, I want to take what you said and move on to a real human problem. We are desperate to know what tomorrow will bring. We are desperate for all kinds of reasons. It's not a negative. So we look up at the clouds and we see the shape of Elvis, and we know that Elvis is the Messiah or something. But people read clouds, or they go to special oracles, okay, and get the truth there. Part of the issue with the clairvoyant and the witch and everyone else is that people want their services, even as they may disparage their services. I want.
Yes. And Risa has COVID.
And that's a real human thing. Okay, Steve.
One of my comments in my commentary is that by definition, sorcery is an attempt to assume control of nature through the powers of impurity and thus to deny God's mastery. And interestingly, last night I learned that the greatest number of witches were put to death because of weather and climate. So that when there was a mini ice age in Europe, hundreds of witches were put to death. And when weather and climate were good, there was less blame placed on these sorceresses.
Do you know the story of Choni Hamagal? Choni, the circle drawer, if I can say that. Choni was the guy who could force God to bring rain. He could draw a circle, get inside the circle and say, God, I'm not moving from this circle until it rains. By the way, he apparently had the skill. So here we have a rain maker, When about 5-6 weeks ago, do you remember we had this intense period of heavy rain and storms? My health aide, Gilroy, and I went out on the beach to watch the waves. They were 11 foot high. It was nice. Of course, the wind was blowing, it was raining, but it was great. And a guy standing next to us on the beach said, all this is happening because there are people in the government who control the weather and thus control our lives. That was when we left the beach and continued our walk, because you don't open up a conversation. Oh, yes. And I saw black helicopters coming down and they're going to, whatever. People do believe in almost anything which can bring them comfort and insight. And I was introducing myself to a new doctor yesterday. By the way, this was the last doctor in Los Angeles whom I have not visited. So, I mean, I had a doctor retire on me, which I regarded as a personal insult. And he wanted to know my health history. This is not a Jewish person, doesn't matter. And he said to me, you must surely believe that God has singled you out by allowing you to survive, and that this is a mission or something. And I sat the doctor down. I said, my turn. With all due respect, I don't believe that's how the world works. And I don't know what he's going to do with my colitis, but he's certainly interested in my theology. And, I guess neither one can be healed. Brad?
Well, Rabbi, I'm just sort of chuckling at the irony here of a people who suspect the sorcerer of being a false prophet, but are perfectly comfortable in listening to the Urim and Tumim, which are what, a pair of dice or lots or whatever. I mean,
excuse me.
Where's the? It is somewhat amusing.
You are not permitted to attack fundamental Jewish teachings. The Urim and Tumim are real. Witches are false. Okay? Ask Yale. Okay? Lux et veritas, right? We got that. Brad, you're totally correct. We have our own systems of trying to game the future. Yom Kippur is one of them. Who shall live and who shall die, who by sword, who by fire. We have our own system of trying to game the future. We want to know, doctor, how long does my grandmother have to live? We want answers from a witch, a doctor. And if they're honest, they'll handle it well. But sometimes awful things happen. I really want to know, look, are any of you aware that we have commentators on television who tell the future? Are you aware? They interpret what's going on and they tell us what's happening and they tell us what's going to happen. The part I love is right now, a past president of the United States is under threat of potential indictment. So you have endless former district attorneys telling you exactly what's going to happen. And you know what? They don't know from dog do what is going to happen. Jeff.
Yeah, on this whole idea of prophecy and who we believe and who we don't believe, a little parable from a movie that Jim Ruxin may be familiar with called Black Robe, a wonderful movie about a Jesuit priest in the 1700s going upriver to find out what happened to one of their outposts. And he's traveling with the Hurons, and to bring enlightenment to the Hurons, he realizes they don't know how to read or write. So he shows them what the power of writing is. He has the chief talk to somebody on his team, and the person writes that down and then gives the piece of paper to the priest who was beyond earshot. And the priest tells him what the chief had just said. And you cut to a scene later that the Jesuit priest thinks he's doing a great boon to these people. But in the next scene, you see the natives sitting with each other, the indigenous people, and one of them says, Black Robe, which is their name for the priest. Black Robe has powerful magic. We must kill him. And it's that second note that is indicative of, to them, that was magic. The writing was magic and it was great power. And rather than revering it, they saw it as a threat and they wanted to kill him.
Yes. And this is part of the problem in the Torah, Jeff, because those soothsayers are actually challenging the power of God. They are putting themselves into a position where they can either tell or create or force an event. And that's idolatry. So part of what is wrong with the witches, male or female, is that they're infringing on God's territory. And that's a problem. Okay, Tamara, well, I'm sorry. You're not on my first screen and where are you, Tamara?
Yeah, I'm here. I just put in the chat some information we have as to what witches and sorcerers did. Apparently, there's a lot of information available because it was a very common practice in the rest of the ancient world.
Why do you think it was so? Why was it a common practice?
Well, because of what they were looked for to do, namely to deal with illnesses. They would have remedies. They were accessible. They were where you were. They were part of communities, and they were healers and magic. They also practiced magic. And for the reasons you said, people need help, and witches were an available source to provide such help within the limits of an ancient society. So they actually did what we call medicine, as well as perform magical rites, like the woman of Endor who brought up a dead person. They were believed to have real powers to engage the invisible world.
We're going to move on from here, but the pull is nevertheless the same. We are desperate to know tomorrow. We are desperate, and we will do almost anything. I mean, I wouldn't even begin to ask here to this kind of highly educated, sophisticated crowd. How many of you check the stars in the newspaper every day to find out what's going to happen?
Horoscope.
I didn't even want to mention it, but there are some people who look at horoscopes. Yes. I do want to move on to
Rabbi, I had one more question. I'm sorry, real quick. Is there any possibility that a translation of the word would be something like a poet or a storyteller?
No. No.
Not a storyteller. The one that you sat around the fire with and told stories.
No, kishufim in Hebrew is magic. It's magic. That's what it is. Now, those of you who have a little bit of Yiddish, let me just talk about my memory. Having met someone in the supermarket, my mother might come home and say, "Ugh, what a machashefa." And she didn't mean, "Oh, what a wonderful teller of the future." She meant, "Oh my God, what a witch." And she meant it in the most lovingly derogatory fashion. My mother didn't pick out many machashefot, but she had a few who were favorites. Chapter 22. Yes, chapter 22, verse 19. Verse 19. Now, Donna, do you remember your verse by heart? What's the verse?
You shall not tolerate a sorceress to live.
Thank you. Okay.
But that's not what they say. You shall not tolerate.
Okay, let's look at 19. Who wants to read verse 19 in English? Anybody? No, but okay, Natalie.
Whoever sacrifices to a god other than the Lord alone shall be proscribed, put to death.
Whoever sacrifices l'Elohim yecharav. We got a problem here. What does the word Elohim mean?
God.
Wait a second. Whoever sacrifices l'Elohim shall be prescribed. What are we finding in this sentence, which is really important? What's here?
but does distinguish between Elohim and Adonai. So it's acknowledging other gods, and you can't bring them offerings, but you can only bring them to Hashem.
Had they look, the Torah is big. Okay, I have carried it around, and we did the whole big business. It can be heavy, but one additional word wouldn't have hurt. If they had put in Zoveach Lalohim Acherim, other gods.
Other, well,
But it doesn't say that. It says whoever sacrifices.
It's an awkward sentence, but doesn't the Livado alone accomplish the same thing?
Okay, so
what is that noise?
an idolater. What is your view of Elohim Acherim, other gods? If you're an idolater, what is your view? What is your view? Okay, Diane, come on, jump in and help me. You're going to leave me out here alone, Diane? Okay.
Effie has his hand up. Effie has his hand up.
Okay, I don't need to see that, and thank you for that, Effie.
Yeah, because the first part of the sentence, sacrifice unto the gods with a small g in my translation, it says Elohim, but then when the quote talks about the Lord, it says Li Adonai.
Your phone.
Tell me about capital letters in the Torah.
There are none.
There are none.
There are none.
So who put the small g in?
The Rashi translation.
It's not the Rashi translation, it's the translator. It's the translator. The translator put small g so that people like you will not be led astray. Right?
Right.
But that is already a commentary.
It was your alarm.
It's a commentary on the text.
Where is it now?
On the bed.
Okay. It is my uneducated estimate that monotheism does not occur in the early parts of the Torah. Oh, maybe not in the later parts of the Torah until we get to material that was written during the time of Isaiah and later. Now, I am waiting to be corrected by my teacher. Okay, tomorrow.
No, it's not Isaiah. It's in the book of Isaiah, but it's later. It's later, and it's from the exile and after the exile. And it was put in the book of Isaiah, but it's a much later prophet. Most of the prophets assume that there are the gods that have actual power. And they're trying to teach Israel loyalty to Israel's God and why Israel should worship God alone. So they're not monotheists. They believe in worshiping of Israel's God alone and not being tempted by other gods.
Thank you. Folks, what does this tell us about our religious belief now? The reality is that Torah does not preach monotheism. Monotheism doesn't come in to Judaism until very late. What does that tell us about our beliefs today? What does this tell us about what we know to be true? What does this tell us about what all the prayers and the liturgy seek to conceal from us. I just said something harsh. Better I should have laryngitis. Eric. I can't hear you, Eric.
Is Elohim plural? Is Elohim plural and Adonai singular in grammar? I'm not sure, but the ancient God was a combination of traits, like a brain, like and talent. So God was a rainbow coalition of talents in the ancient, in some aspects. And Adonai is a singular, and Elohim is a plural, I think. I'm just checking.
Elohim is in its construct plural. Adonai in its construct is singular. I can do that. What you've asked is a hugely important question, and we'll try to get around to it. Mara?
Well, in fact, we haven't necessarily evolved entirely, as many of us still worship other gods, such as money, fame, etc. We just look at those gods in a different way. We don't call them gods.
Okay, it's a shame Mona isn't here, but I'm into metaphor. Metaphor is good. Money as a god is good. But these people believed that there were multiple sources of power acting in the universe. And whatever we think about money, other than the fact that I don't have any, whatever we think about money, it doesn't operate independently in the world. And there is a difference there, Mara, and you do a heck of a lot of writing. But money as a god is metaphor. Elohim I would view it differently. Because money has no agency. These gods have agency attributed to them. I want people to argue with me. I'm in the mood for being yelled at.
Can I just say that if we didn't believe money had agency, we wouldn't worship it. So it's all a matter of how you define agency.
I agree with Mara, because money gives somebody, they think, power to make decisions, to it's a false sense of control in one's life. Or maybe better to say that it's a limited amount of control. It allows you to go to the doctor you want to go to. It allows you to, if you didn't have the money, you couldn't do it. So it allows you to have it's a vehicle for having some agency.
Money is tangible. You can hold it in your hand. You can give it away. I don't think money is related in my heart, myself. I don't think money is related to God. I think God is God. And like people worship Buddha. Buddha has nothing to do with money. You might pray to Buddha or pray to God that you'd like to have some more money, but to have money does not mean that that's God.
Excuse me, Susie, I cannot help the fact that because I'm feeling a little under the weather, my mind creates all kinds of images. And the images of a Chinese restaurant I used to go to, and they had a big Buddha. It was a very fancy restaurant, had a big Buddha in the entranceway. And as the serving person would lead us in, they would say, rub his belly, and that will bring you all kinds of benefits. And I want you to know, as a rabbi, scholar, teacher, academic, I rubbed his belly. Just in case anyone's interested, Steve.
I also disagree with Mara, and if you rub the money, it doesn't give you money. But I want to go back to your question about monotheism. And I think initially it doesn't matter because we were an insular society. We had our God. We believed our God to be superior to all others, as evidenced in Pharaoh's court and how we regained the land when we returned to Canaan. And I think the evolution, so we had a superior God. So and if God is omnipotent and all these other things, there really can be only one. So it's only a slight movement to acknowledge that is really only one God. He can be a God of all people, and in a more enlightened ecumenical world, we can acknowledge, that perhaps Buddha is just another manifestation of the ultimate power of God for all people.
I unfortunately, this chapter is just rich with interesting stuff. We should be aware that there are references, Lo tiyeh Elohim acherim, don't have other gods. When you say Elohim acherim, it's like you got one, but all the others are false. But they're in the same category. I'd like to point again to something which is really important to me. Judaism, from its earliest days, struggled for separation. It struggled to find ways to show we are not them. That's hugely important. It's hugely important with Shabbat. It's hugely important with food customs. It's hugely important in worship. It's hugely important in whatever it is that the non-Jew does, we don't do. And sometimes the reason is because we need to be different. It is a mainstream Jewish trend, necessity, thing that we must be different. And if they have this kind of a God, we have to exclude it from our type of God. Tulfun is mentioning a story about how a God comes to be created. And you read American Gods. You read American Gods, Tulfun. That is by one of my favorite Jewish authors. I love him. And American Gods is great. It's a story of the new world gods versus the old world gods. Okay, we're gonna go to Jeff, and we just have to stop. But Jeff.
Yeah, I just wanted to somewhat reconcile what Mara was saying and what you're saying in terms of semantics. Because you worship something, does that automatically make an object of worship a god? People, and that's also what Susie was saying, you can worship money, but does that mean that you're praying to a god? And I would argue that in terms of our distinction as Jews stand, that we would say that other people could worship certain things that didn't make what they worship gods. So the question of agency is interesting in that respect, although as Reformed Jews, we're taught that praying for God to do something is also not really within the tradition, because that does get into what this has all been about: witchcraft, sorcery, superstition, believing that God can pull the strings. But I just think that it's interesting to think that you can worship something and that doesn't make it a God. It makes it an object of worship. And I don't have a conclusion there, but I thought maybe you would, Stan.
I just may cough, and that kind of resolves.
We can worship our rabbis, but that
Wait.
doesn't make our rabbis God.
Well, some of them are.
Stop interrupting her.
Some of them think they are.
There you go.
I'd like to point out that the rabbis know that we are struggling. So when they're trying to understand who are the Elohim Achirim, some of the rabbis say, that's just referring to angels. That's referring to angels. The Elohim Achirim, the other gods, they're angelic figures. The problem, geez, we have to stop. I don't want to stop, but the problem will ever be the same. How can we get from a physical, material world to make contact with an infinite spirit called God? So much of Western literature has been created in pursuit of what I believe to be an impossible mission. You can't do it. And that means at a certain point, we have to be willing to say, we have created gods to meet our needs. That doesn't mean that what we created is actual. And that's Howard, brief, and then I have to go to Kaddish, please.
Yes, just briefly, does Reform Judaism teach that we're not supposed to pray for God for something to happen or to do something?
There are all kinds of easy ways to answer this. One is a favorite of mine, that if you're coming to your hometown and you're on a hill overlooking your hometown and you see that there's a fire in the town, you are forbidden to pray that it not be my house. Because there is a reality. Don't flee from reality. It is what is at that point. And don't go looking for magic solutions.
So in order to actually, you're not allowed, in Reform, you're not allowed to pray for something, like pray for the peace of Jerusalem or...
Oh, yes, you can pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Absolutely. Aspirational prayer is good. But don't expect that by having uttered a prayer for the peace of Jerusalem, the idiots in the current government will disappear. Oh, that was a value judgment. Did I say that? Oh, sorry. We're going to stop. This is so good, and I love you guys. So good. Thank you for that. We're going to. Oh, Eric wants us to contact Rabbi Schneerson or the Golem or something. Okay. We mentioned those who have passed away during the past month. Camille Adar, Joel Altschul, Muriel Blankfort, Virginia Balukian, Albert Greenfeld, Lois Melvoin, Joyce Olin, Joel Ostro, Louis Rosen, Ruth Rosenberg, Tamara Stoyarsky. And the anniversaries of whose deaths have occurred during the past week. Ann Abrams, Norman Abrams, Rachel Almo, Lucy Armo, Lionel Bell, Jean Berlfine, Evelyn Black, Fanny Platt, Saul Block. I don't know what just happened. Alex Chaskus, Gerald Chaskus, Jenny Chortik, Michael Caulfield, Benjamin Cohn, Max Gall, Barry Dean, Michael Ellis Jr., Lawrence Feinstein, Douglas Feld, Charles Fenton, Rabbi Harvey Fields, Floyd Sidney Fearman, Robin Fisher, Marvin Frankel, Herbert Frankel, Goldie Friedman, Sam Gilbert, Bessie Ginsburg, Donald Glabman, Gene Glass, Ginger Glazer, Esther Golad, Sidney Goldberg, Samuel Goldman, Edward Greenberg, Martin Greenberg, David Grover, Willard Hackerman, Sam Hallam, Alan Hervey, Milton Heskell, Arnold Holstein, Lola Lee Jameson, Max Kamens, Leon Kent, Peter Kopelson, Sylvia Salita Krausen, Frida Kurtzman, Flora Kite, Shirley Landsman, Eva Lane, Gerald Levitt, Adrian Lee, James Levitt, Sarah Levine, Edmund Levine, Ronald Levine, Dottie Levinson, Marco Levy, Samuel Lipkins, Myron Maggot, Sarah Mankoff, Paula Merenberg, Ilona Marston, Augusta Max, Irving Miller, Edith Miller, George Mincer, Taji Newman, Hazel Orbiston, Daniela Ortiz Fidesh, Robert Van Patten Pauli, Andrea Lynn Pennington, Leslie Perlov, Louis Peters, Dorothy Balsiger Phelps, Edward Phillips Sr., Gail Pricer, William Rogers, Sally Ralston, Sonia Rosenblum, Rudy Solomons, Ida Salzman, Sue Schneider, Rose Schwimmer, Beverly Seeger, Samuel Schaffer, Ann Schumann, Francis Silverman, Samuel Sims, Saul Slam, Miriam Burtis, Gertrude Teitelman, Jess Uslan, Myron Varan, Martin Wagmeister, Alan Kusak Weinberger, Etta Weissman, Bernard Yeager, Sam Yesko, Dorothy Zucker. I apologize for mispronunciations. If I have omitted any names, please speak those names aloud now.
Frank Weiss.
We mention as well all those who died in defense of the United States, those who died in defense of the United States, of Israel, those who died through senseless acts of terror and horror, those who have no one to say Kaddish for them. We say Kaddish for them. We join together. Yit Gadol. Alma, Divra, Israel, Leolam Leomei, Alma, Yitbarach, Amen. Hey, Shlomo Rabba Min Shemaya. Ose Shalom. Amen. God, who makes peace in the high places, make peace in our hearts. Make peace in our homes. Make peace in the household of Israel. make peace among all the families and nations of earth, and let us say,
Amen.
Amen.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Well,
Thank you, Rabbi.
well, be good to each other. Don't spend time with witches. Lots of loves.
Take care of Risa. We want Risa to get well fast.
Me too, and thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Refuah Shlema.
Good to see you, Jeff.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Susie. You know, Dean and I are coming.
I do. Oh, of course. They'll have extra food for you guys.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Shabbat shalom.